I didn't have any women in my family on either side that were homemakers. And for me, as a woman of color, walking into that role of being a full-time homemaker, even with outside ventures and things that I was pursuing, that was something foreign and questionable for a lot of them. It felt like a walk backwards.
Let's grow as we go.
Hi, welcome back to Blooming Horizons. I'm here with Lila Marie,
Hello.
Christina,
Hey, guys.
and it's Nidra here. And the topic for today is, when you got married, did you ever plan to be a homemaker, a house manager? I'm going to leave that with you. Leave it
Family
to you,
CEO, CFO.
Yeah.
I think it was always, it felt like a pipe dream when we got, like, I just knew, like, I was a teacher. Like, I didn't think it would be attainable. But it is something that I did desire. Yes.
You desired that. What about you, Lil Marie?
By the time I was marrying age, I think that was on my mind. Like I was in some graduate programs, and I thought I want to make sure that there's enough time for a husband and family. So that was on my mind, and then transitioned pretty directly into being a homemaker.
For myself, absolutely not. That was not a desire or a need in my world. Actually, I at one time did not even want children, so it was not not a thing. So we all have been stay-at-home moms in some sort. I was teaching, and then I was like, I can't teach and have the kids and do all the things. Being home, and it felt like, I was like, wait, how did I? It was almost like somebody like transported me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm staying home? What happened? How did I get here? Like, that's kind of how it happened for me. What about you?
There was a few steps. So again, public school teacher, knew we wanted to take a step back. So from there, I went and worked in ministry full time for 2 years. And then we had our third baby. And then that transitioned me to not working outside of the home. But even though I have been not in a corporate job for like 7 years, I've had work inside the home. So I've had different jobs and things inside.
So you are a stay-at-home mom, meaning your kids are home with you, you're homeschooling, but you also are doing some other jobs to just kind of fill in the gap, right?
Correct. Yeah. Like I've kept kids in the home. I've done like online ESL tutoring. I've worked in like the dance studio in the evening. And like I can't say that I've been just
At home.
There's always been like multiple plates spinning there.
I think a big moment I remember before, when you had two kids in school, you were driving, I don't know, 45 minutes a day, both ways to work. And we would talk on the phone, and we would chat on the phone every morning and every afternoon. Okay. And so I remember her saying to me, she was like, it was this long pause. I was like, you okay? She was, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know it, but I still just get up every day, kiss my kids before they're awake. And I go do this job. And when I come home, I get to bathe them and put them to sleep. And she was like, I don't like this feeling. And I was like, I'm so sorry. This is pre-kids for me. So I didn't understand the heaviness of that. But I was like, well, why don't you just stay home? And I remember her at the end of that week, she came and she was like, I did the math. And I literally am doing this job to fill a gap of $300 or $600.
Like 6, yeah. No, I remember.
Yeah. And I was, that is a small amount. And she was like, but we need it. I don't think you understand. We have to have this money in this. The gap that's a big gap for us. And I was like, man. And so years go by, whatever. And, she made that shift and it all worked out. But I want to encourage you, if you're in that there's a gap, you know, there's a gap and it doesn't feel right to you. Like you're just feeling like this isn't the right thing for me. And I feel like I should be home, or I feel like I should be homeschooling, or whatever the case may be. And that gap, don't be afraid of that gap. I think I would say that, right?
I wish we had been more brave. Maybe.
Brave.
Just to
Yes.
be like, I could work 3 nights a week someplace, like be home during the day. And we could have like side hustled it to fill that gap. But at the time,
It just feels so.
it felt outrageous.
Outrageous.
Like, I think for my spouse, I think it just felt like too wild. You know,
Really?
Wild.
we can't. That's just it's unknown. Like going
Yeah.
out into the unknown and
Yeah.
I know. I will never forget. It was like 5th or 6th grade, and someone asked me. I don't know if it was like an assignment or someone just asking me what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I
Yes.
remember just having this kind of almost vision kind of experience where my answer to myself was, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be a wife and a mother. But having said that, I always had like this other shadow self in my mind of being a businesswoman, and they've always existed, you know, in this tension. Sometimes one would come forward, you know, I would be more business driven, whether it be, I don't know, starting a ministry or some kind of organization, right?
Right.
Or it be more leaning into, I guess you could say, domestic arts, right? But they've always kind of coexisted.
Yeah.
But kind of feeling out, each season changes. But I do remember when I got married, that we did plan for me to be at home. But I remember coming home from the hospital with my first child, our producer, and just this feeling like I guess it was probably partly hormones, but I was like, no one is touching this baby but me. I am like, God, like I just had this, I'm like I just could just eat her up, like I just, you know what I mean? So
I love it though.
so like and I enjoyed that time so much. I mean, it was really busy. It was completely new. I didn't have any women in my family on either side that were homemakers. And for me, as a woman of color, walking into that role of being a full-time homemaker, even with outside ventures and things that I was pursuing, that was something foreign and questionable for a lot of them. It felt like a walk backwards. It felt like a slap in the face or an insult.
Yes.
And so I kind of had to work through that. I spent a lot of years trying to validate myself and my choices.
Yeah.
You know, of course, I looked at the money component. There was this book called The Tightwad Gazette by Amy Decision. It's like out of print now, but looking at the money. But I spent a lot of time in that validation, proving, you know, kind of role. And I think that that I allowed it to take some away from being all in to the homemaker. I was always slightly conflicted because of outside opinions.
Yeah.
That's so good, because I remember when I had my first and I said, Mom, I'm going to breastfeed. She said, what? No, I just don't think, are you sure? You know, they have formula. Like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And I just remember she wasn't trying to be hateful, but it was just something so foreign to her.
Yeah.
And then when I would I was like trying to breastfeed and cover or go in my room. And then finally I was like, you don't want to see it, move around, but this is my house. It's my baby. Like, I'm just going to breastfeed wherever I want to breastfeed. And so, you know, I would just make an announcement. Hey, I'm about to breastfeed. And then I look around and it would just be my mom and I. So people just found their way. But I think when you feel passionate about something or something is important to you and you feel led in that, do it. I did not feel passionate nor led to be a stay-at-home mom. And not just that, but even while I was in it, I remember my mom being like, you know, you always could just not, though. You don't have to do that. But I remember one day, Christine and I we're in my kitchen or something, and we both were carrying our babies because we had our babies 6 weeks apart. Isn't that cute? And so I had mine in Karen, she had her in carrier, and we were like talking and laughing and like cooking something, and I was like, oh, okay, I can get into this. Okay, because I think I'm a community girl. I'm a tribe girl. So I think I had to find a community of women to do it with, because I by myself wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Extroverts, staying home is not. It's not easy. Like, if you're thinking about being a stay-at-home mom, awesome. But really try to find that community to do it with, right?
It's not just the...
My grandmother stayed home. She was a homemaker her whole career, like a few times, had side jobs and stuff. And my mother was not. My mother worked career her whole entire life, and was a single mom on top of that. So multi-layers happening there. And so I think I received a similar vibe of when I was like, oh, I think I'm going to be home. And you're like, you know what I mean? And then I was like, we're going to homeschool. She was like, oh
my God. Yes.
You know what I mean? Now, she did breastfeed me, so she was very supportive in that. But this idea that like, oh, you don't want something for yourself outside of the home, I think is a common
sentiment.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's just like, well, don't you want something for yourself? And you do, but they're just different. So,
And there's seasons.
And I think, we see now, I think we see more representation of that, but I do think that it is still something that in the Black community is something that needs to be fostered, or at least a little bit louder voices of like, no, I'm here. This is what we do. Like, I see it just in homeschooling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like Black families that are choosing to homeschool, which generally speaking means that one parent does need to be home. And so I'm seeing a lot more of that intentionality in creating community, that like, you're not alone. This isn't something, because you are going to get a lot of pushback in a culture when you try to do something that people are not just accustomed to or don't know about.
I think staying home or being a homeschool parent doesn't have to look like I stay home, I don't do anything else. I had a girlfriend, but she had a job. She worked from 5 p.m., 6 p.m.
I think they were both in the restaurant industry.
Something.
And she was more like back scenes, office.
Yeah.
And he was like sous chef.
Yeah.
So he worked during the day.
And then she worked nights. So she started at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And she was on the phone. So she was home in the home, right? And then she got off at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And then she slept, and then she got up, and then she homeschooled them. So it doesn't mean like we can't do this because I have to have a job. You can still do it. I've heard of people that homeschool in the afternoon, evening. I mean, that is a possibility too. I have homeschooled, but my kids are back in school. But it can all be different, and it all can look different, and nothing is wrong.
To go back into some sort of community work situation, because society, like life, has kind of been like, oh, you've only been, or you just. And what's been really interesting was to watch my friends who have transitioned from being public school teachers into corporate jobs and them transforming their resumes and being able to take what they did and flip that into terminology for the corporate world, right? Like, so you're like, I'm used to handling a multifaceted calendar and coordinating across multiple departments and blah, blah. Like, oh, I had to make sure I could use the gym with the PE coach and the orchestra teacher and everything, right? Like all those things that we just did, then to put that spin on it. And so I think that's been a fun thing to do, is to take like what we do and put it, like, what would that look like on a corporate resume?
Yes. We've also talked about that with our spouses. Like or
Yes,
any of
everybody.
our homeschool mamas or stay-at-home moms, if there are moments when your spouse isn't quite like understanding what's happening when they come home, you know, they come in and they're like, whoa, what happened here? There's paint all over. Right. The janitorial staff was unable to, they got the request late. They got it at 4:45 and you showed up at 5. So they were unable to execute that yet. And then also the people over the dietitian and the cafeteria ladies, they were still working over here trying to create a nutritious meal. Like, I feel like if we start speaking in that language,
Yeah.
they start to grasp that.
Say, oh man, I was called into an unexpected meeting this afternoon that lasted for well over an hour. It was very trying. Did not have that on my calendar, but I got pulled into it unwillingly. And so I haven't been able to accomplish the tasks that I'd set out for myself this afternoon because management pulled me in, and that was I've just been dealing with that.
Right? I mean, you know, when you talk in that type of language, you know,
even to yourself, even to like validate that what you're doing has worth and value, because it can take effect on our womanhood and on our brains of this is what I'm offering. Like, this is it.
But back to that question you asked about how it can go to the other spectrum. I felt like for me, it took a while to find people that are just, you know, the chill mom at the park that's like sitting there and their kid like falls and you're like, you're all right. Get up. You're all right. That's my vibe. So I had to find those moms, not the moms that are at the park at the end of the slide and they're like, here you go. That just wasn't me. I'm not hating on you if that's your vibe. I'm just saying I knew I emotionally couldn't keep up with that.
Right.
I barely was keeping up with the 2-year-old
Blooming